Now, it's time for the Neighborhood Connection, sponsored by The Wall.
We'd like to make you a part of the show here in Around the House Northwest. One of our favorite ways to do it is through our Neighborhood Connection. This week, we got a couple questions relating to spring maintenance. First up, how to repair a damaged screen door. And let me tell you what, this one's damaged. These can get damaged a number of different ways. Maybe it's your friend running through it, maybe it's like mine where the dog did, or maybe it's just the weather. After a while, this stuff just breaks down and comes apart. The more sun it gets, the faster it breaks down. Now, this is a pretty simple DIY project. First off, no matter what you do, you need to go get one of the kits or get the screen itself, because we're gonna start over on this. If this frame is bent, go buy another whole screen door, because it's not worth fixing. First, we're gonna make sure that we take this old screen and the spline out, and let's do that first. Now, the easiest place to do that is in the corner, if you can get it started someplace. And I'm just using a utility knife here because I'm gonna be doing a lot of cutting. And once I get it started, I'm gonna pull the spline out that holds this whole thing in. And this one's coming out pretty good. Now, this is a little different style of spline. This kit comes with one. I'll probably end up using that one. So now this screen will lift right out into the trash that goes. Next up here, we've got the right size screen. Let's pull out of the kit. This is a simple hand tool kind of thing. Here's that spline I was talking about. Get that box out of here, and here's our new screen material. You can really see how much that other one was worn out. Usually this stuff's black. Now, they make about 3 different styles of this. This is the medium duty stuff. You can get the light duty, which is almost clear. Problem is with that, people tend to walk through the door when they're not paying attention, so I didn't go that route. And a little word of advice, they make some super heavy duty stuff for pets. That stuff there is really tough to get in. This could take hours with that, and you're trying to hammer it in there. That is left best to the professionals. I struggled even with it the last time I did this. So we're gonna reuse this spline here. I mean, really, all we could have is a knife and our little tool here that'll roll the spline in. That's how simple this is. Let me get this lined out here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get this really square in here. And I like to kind of take one of the factory edges if I can, because you want to get this lined up squarely. So I grab a line, and then I will start here and get in the corner. Start getting the spline. The spline can always be cut, so if you go a little farther, no big deal. And once you get it started, you can start going. These splines also have 2 different sizes on this for the big and the small spline on here, so pick the right size for this one. I'm gonna go with the bigger one and just get this started in here. I don't want this to move around anymore. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just go down here and get this lined up. I'm actually sliding this to the inside of this to grab my line so I keep this square. After all, the screen's just little tiny square holes, and I like to have those kind of lined up in here. You don't want to get it too tight, but you want to get it tight enough that you've got this, this ripple out of the middle of it. So I'm going to get around the corner here and get this kind of lined out. So we're good here. So I'm looking up here to make sure that I get this lined up, and I'm pulling tight this way. We're getting into kind of the most important part on the long side of getting this in here right. And that's about the tension I want right there. A little bit of forgiveness on that goes a long ways as far as tension. Same thing, I'm gonna pull some tension this way, get this started in the corner for our last run. This is kind of where you really want to make sure and look down your lines and make sure they're looking pretty good. Because now's the time you want to fix that, because you're going to have to tear this out if not. So staying on those details is key. Get that started in the corner. Again, this is one of those trouble spots where you got wheels here, so you got to get around all the little hardware pieces that get in the way of that. Now, sometimes a screwdriver will help you get into the corners, but you got to be so careful because if you slip the screwdriver once, you'll pop it right through the screen, and you're starting over. All right. Screen's out of the way. Get this corner pushed in a little more. And that is how you change a screen in a screen door, and I know you can do it too. We had a great question come in on lawn care. You know, dealing with moss and an unhealthy lawn is a big one. And of course, we all want to have the best lawn in the neighborhood. Now, before we get into all these different products, before you even head out to the store to go pick up some of these, I want to make sure that you do the first thing, which is super important. That's test your soil. What are you working with? That is going to really send you down the correct road to having a great lawn. You don't need to put any of this stuff on here if you don't need it. And it's not cheap. It's a lot more expensive this year than it was last. Now, here's the thing. Take that soil sample, send it off to your local extension agent or lab. They're going to tell you what that soil is. Maybe it's too acidic. Maybe it's too alkaline. That's going to tell you how to best make your lawn healthy. Now, if you're dealing with moss, which is common, I think almost everybody deals with that at some point. I love some of these products like this. Something like this, every company makes them, but this is Moss Out here. This has got a bunch of different things to make your lawn look great. First off, you want that lawn to be thick in the summertime, so you gotta kill that moss. And how you do it is this. Now, a couple things before we get into what the Moss Outs do. We have basically our three numbers down here. This first one is one of the most important one. That's the nitrogen. What that is the number that makes that grass super green and grow fast. Now, this one's phosphorus free, which that's okay. It's not the best for the environment anyway. But here's the thing, this has 10% iron. That's the moss killer in this. Iron's great. That actually makes that deep green lawn, which I like. But the problem with this is you don't want to put that anywhere near the concrete because that's going to put rust stains. Every little one of those pieces of iron is going to look like rust in the driveway, and that's no good. So follow the directions on this stuff to a T. A lot of these things you don't want to use anywhere near waterways, lakes, streams, wetlands, all that stuff. So be careful. That is a good solution for dealing with that. And it fertilizes your lawn at the same time. So this is going to be kind of that twofer for your lawn. Now, if you figured out that your lawn is too acidic, this is what it is. You've got this super sweet, which is a lime. This goes through. And really what this does is you put this across, in time it breaks down and makes this less acidic. That is gonna mean that you're gonna have a much greener, healthier lawn because when that acidity gets all over the place or the alkalinity gets all over the place, it doesn't want to grab all the minerals and all the stuff in the soil to make for a healthy lawn. This is your secret to a healthy lawn, but you got to have that lab test to know where you're going, and that's key. This you might have to put on 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending on how much you're trying to balance stuff out. The more big fir trees and pine trees and whatever you have in your lawn, most likely the more you're going to do with this because that is the stuff that's changing the acidity in the soil. Now, if you've got a little tiny area or if you've got flower beds that have that moss growing up, something like this, one of these little spot units, this good's great. You can go around and hit the spots out there. Maybe it's in the grass, maybe it's around the flower bed. This will control it as well. It works really good for you on that. Now, when it comes down to overseeding and really making this lawn great, it's way early right now. With all the heavy rains and the cool weather we've had, you really need to be in the 60s or 70s to really be able to overseed. You know, you can try doing some of these patches right now for the little small things. If you've got a little area to do for maybe where the dog made a mistake or you had a little pathway that people were walking around in the wintertime that really made a muddy mess, it might work for you, but I'd wait a little bit longer here into that springtime to make sure you put it down and you do it once. No sense buying grass seed twice. Now, a lot of these little things like this here is good for shade and sun, but if you're in the shade, maybe you want to make sure and get that only shade stuff. Or if it's a high traffic area, maybe go out and get some of the high traffic seed. It's more durable, and maybe next year you won't have to patch it up in the springtime again, and that's a key. We'd love to have your questions. You know something? We've made it easier than ever before. Just grab your phone right now and scan the QR code. We'd love to see your questions and comments and see if you could be on a future episode of Around the House Northwest.